Welcome back to Animated Loops. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to make a particle loop, but that's only going to be the very last part of this lesson. Most of this lesson will focus on creating more advanced shape layer animation, using lots of expressions and nulls to link all of your shapes together. Let's get started. We'll start by building a chair. I have a composition named Rocking Chair, 1080 by 1080, 30 frames a second, 6 seconds long. I'll start by creating an ellipse. No fill, just a 40 pixel wide stroke. Make it brown. And 300 pixels wide. Name the layer Chair Side Left. On the ellipse, add trim paths. Set the end to 30% and set the offset to 126 degrees to make it level on the ground. And give it a round cap. Put the ellipse in a group and name the group Rocker Front. Then create a new null and name this Rocker Left. This should be at the same position as the shape layer. This null will control the rotation, so link the rotation of the ellipse transform to the Rocker Left rotation with an expression. Now, the null's rotation controls the rotation of the shape, but it isn't parented to it. Duplicate Rocker Left and name it Chair Move. Parent Rocker Left and Chair Side Left to Chair Move. Show the anchor point for Chair Move and add an expression to this. Type open square bracket minus, then connect this to the rotation of Rocker Left. Then type multiply by 3, comma. This means the x position of the anchor point will be 3 times as big as the Rocker Left rotation value, and negative. Then type value, open bracket, 1, close bracket, to make the y position of the anchor point the same as the current value. This makes the chair rock back and forth, controlled by the rotation. But I did this with the anchor point, so we can still move the chair around if we need to. On the Chair Side Left layer, duplicate the Rocker Front group, name this Rocker Back, move it below, and make it a darker brown. On the ellipse within that layer, change the transform position to 2 and minus 0.2, which moves it very slightly up and to the right. Then on the Rocker Back group, add a repeater. Give this 8 copies, and the repeater transform will use that same position, 2 and minus 0.2. Now we can rotate Rocker Left, but the Rocker Back group always stays at the same angle, creating a 3D effect. On Chair Side Left, create a rounded rectangle. Name this Seat. Make the size 200 by 40. No stroke, just a fill, the same colour as Rocker Front. Move the rectangle path position up to minus 56, but keep the position of the shape in the same place. Then copy and paste the rotation from one of the ellipse shapes to the seat transform rotation, to give it the same expression we wrote earlier, linking it to the Rocker Left rotation. Duplicate the seat and name this Armrest. Change the rectangle size to 155 by 30. And move the rectangle path position to around minus 52, minus 148. Duplicate Armrest, group this, and name the group Armrest Back. Move this below Armrest, and make this a darker brown. On Armrest 2 within the group, change the transform position to 2 and minus 0.2 again. Then you can just copy and paste the repeater from rocker back to armrest back. Now we have a 3D armrest too. But having overlapping straight lines like this can create some sharp edge noise. So I'm going to add a slight 1.5 pixel stroke to the top armrest shape to smooth out the edge. In chair side left, reorder the layers. Armrest, then seat, then rocker front, then armrest back, and rocker back. Now let's draw some lines connecting all of these elements together. I'm using a stroke, 20 pixels wide, with a round cap. Create the back leg, the front leg, a crossbar between these two shapes, another longer stroke for the edge of the backrest of the chair, and a shorter stroke for the armrest support. Make sure the position of all of these shapes is at 0, where the rocker left null is. Then copy and paste the rotation expression from the seat shape to all of these new shapes. So rocker left controls them all. Now duplicate chair side left, move it below, and name this chair side right. Reposition chair side right to around 154 and -16. Adjust the backrest path to make the top of the chair wider. Move the path position of both armrest layers forwards to around -34. And move the armrest and arm support shapes just below the backrest shape. Recolor the seat, leg and rocker shapes to be slightly darker to give it some contrast from the front. Now we have two sides of a chair, both rocking or controlled by one rotation value. Now we need to create the shapes connecting these two sides of the chair together. We'll start with the top of the backrest. Just a fill, no stroke. Then hold Alt or Option while dragging to draw a rectangle for the top of the chair back. Make sure the position of the rectangle transform is at 0. Then position these points correctly. Name this layer Chair Back Top. Move the layer between both sides of the chair and parent it to Chair Move. Now we're going to use a script that comes with After Effects called Create Nulls from Paths. Select the path in Chair Back Top. Then click Point Follow Nulls. This creates 4 nulls for each corner of the shape. First, rename these so you know which corner they are linked to. Parent the left nulls to rocker left, then duplicate rocker left and name this rocker right. copy and paste the position from chair side right to rocker right. Then link the rotation of rocker right to rocker left. And you can parent the chair back top right nulls to rocker right. Now if you rotate just rocker left, everything is linked together. We'll do the same for the other parts of the chair. First do the seat, using a 40 pixel wide stroke, the same width as the seat height. Give it a round cap, move the points to the back of the seat. You can select each of the chair side layers and drag out some guides to help you with the position. Then select the path and click Points Follow Nulls. Rename the nulls Seat Back, Left and Right. Parent left to rocker left and right to rocker right. Now the back of the chair should move in 3D. Duplicate all of the seat back layers. Rename these Seat Front. Select Seat Front and in Effect Controls, reconnect the points to the seat front left and right nulls. Select both nulls and slide the position over to the front of the chair. Now the front and back of the chair move together. You could do the same as with the top of the chair to fill in the hole, but as I'm going to put the character here, you won't see the hole anyway. Now let's connect the legs. Duplicate the seat front layers. Rename these Legs Crossbar Front. Select the shape layer and reconnect the points to the new nulls in Effect Controls. Make the stroke width 20. Select both nulls and move them down to connect the front of the legs. Check it's working. Then duplicate these 3 layers for the back crossbar. Rename them Legs Crossbar Back. Reconnect the nulls in Effect Controls. Select both nulls and slide the position over to the back. Change the color of the shape to the dark brown. And test it's working. Now we just need to add some more bars for the back of the chair, but we need to make some new nulls to parent these two. Duplicate Seat Back Left and rename this Chair Back Bottom. Link the rotation of this null to the rocker left rotation, but make it negative. Duplicate Chair Back Bottom and name it Chair Back Top. Move it up to the top of the chair on the left. On the rotation expression on chair back top, make this minus 0.9 multiplied by the rocker left rotation, as the top is slightly wider than the bottom. Duplicate all of the seat back layers. Rename these chair back bar 1 and the nulls top and bottom. Reduce the stroke width to 12 and reconnect the points to the new nulls in effect controls. Reposition the nulls to the top and bottom of the chair. Parent chair back bar 1 top to chair back top, and chair back bar 1 bottom to chair back bottom. Now that should move correctly. Duplicate these back bar layers a couple more times for 2 more bars. Test out the rotation. It's looking good. Reposition the chair move null to the left and lower down. Create a blue background layer. And create an ellipse for a shadow. Make it darker blue. Make the size 570 by 60. Parent it to chair move and position it below the chair at around 86 and 152. In case you want to change the scale of the chair at any point, you should also parent all of the shape layers to the chair move null, otherwise the stroke widths won't scale correctly. I'm going to make all of the chair layers brown just to help keep things organized. Then select all of the nulls besides chair move and rocker left and hide them. Make them shy layers and hide completely, because we won't need to move them. Now the chair is done, so we can bring in our character. Copy all of the character layers facing to the right, as we had them at the start of lesson 4. Paste these into the rocking chair composition at the top. Move all of the shape layers down below chair side left. Then move hand left and arm left above chair side left. Move the chair move and rocker left nulls to the top. And move foot left and leg left just below chair side left. Then all of the face elements, and move the body, hand right and arm right below seat front. Parent character null to rocker left. Set the character null position to around 95 and -260. Then move the anchor point to the bottom of the body on the chair. And also move the anchor point of the body null to the same position. On the character null, link the rotation to rocker left's rotation with an expression and make it negative, so the character stays level when the chair rotates. On both of the ankles in effect controls, make the length shorter, around 145, and change the midpoint to 75%. Parent foot left null, and the left hip to rocker left. And foot right null and the right hip to rocker right. And I'm just going to show all of the shy layers so I can move all of the hidden nulls to the top. Then hide them again. Move the left hip to around 80 and -95. And the right hip to around 30 and -90. Rotate both feet nulls to around 65 degrees. Move foot left null to around 120 and 25. And foot right null to around 70 and 30. So the feet are hanging down with the legs bending over the front of the seat. Move the left shoulder to around -170 and 30, so it's a bit lower down. Parent hand left null to rocker left. And move the position to around -15 and -175, with the rotation around -150. Go down to the hand left layer and flip the vertical scale to -100. Duplicate hand left and name this hand left fingers. Delete the ellipse and thumb from this layer and delete the fingers from a hand left. Move hand left below chair side left. And adjust the thumb path shape behind the armrest, although you can't actually see it anyway. Then adjust the finger paths on the hand left fingers layer, so they're resting on top of the armrest. Select the right wrist and flip the direction of the bend. Now we're going to draw a pipe. Create an ellipse, no fill, just a light brown stroke, 12 pixels wide. Make the size 105 by 30. Name the layer Pipe Front. Name the shape Rim. Duplicate the rim, move it below, name the shape Bowl. No stroke, just a fill, the darker brown. Make the size 135 by 155. Move the path position to 0 and 38. Duplicate the rim ellipse path. Move this below the bowl ellipse path. Link the size of this ellipse path to the rim ellipse path. Add merge paths to the bowl. Set this to subtract. Select the bowl, then add a rectangle, which should be 100 by 100 by default. Move the position of this up to -50. and change the width to 200 so this cuts off the top edge of the bowl. Then add trim paths to the rim, set the end to 50% and the offset to 90. Add a round cap to the stroke. Duplicate pipe front, move it below, name this pipe back. Delete the bowl from this layer. Delete trim paths from this rim. Add a darker brown fill to the rim behind. Then link the path size of the pipe back rim to the size of the pipe front rim. Parent pipe back to pipe front. Now we can adjust the size of the pipe front rim to add some depth to the pipe. Now on pipe back, with the pen tool, draw the rest of the pipe. OK. Parent pipe front to hand right null. Move the position of pipe front to around 96 and -62. And I'm going to make the right arm a darker yellow. Move the pipe layers down above all of the shape layers. Go down to the hand right shape layer, duplicate this and name it hand right fingers. In this layer, delete the thumb, finger 1 and the ellipse. Delete fingers 2, 3 and 4 from the hand right layer. Move the hand right fingers above the pipe. Then adjust the finger paths to be holding the pipe. Adjust the finger and thumb on the hand right layer too. Move the position of the right shoulder down to around 150 and 90. Move the anchor point of hand right null to the end of the pipe and position it just in front of the mouth. Move the face null over to around 65. Now I'll draw some eyebrows. No fill, just a stroke, 20 pixels wide. I'll make them yellow, a bit lighter than the body. Draw the left eyebrow. Give it a round cap. Make it roughly the width of the eye, following the same curve. Name the layer eyebrows and the shape within that left. Duplicate left, name it right, move the layer down above the eyes and parent it to the face null. Now draw a beard. No stroke, just a fill, the same colour as the eyebrows. Start with a point between the eyes, around where the nose would be. Then add points either side of the mouth. Name the layer beard and move it down below the eyes. Then add 2 more points around each knee. Then one more point at the bottom with tangent handles pointing up at an angle. Now, as with the chair, we're going to create nulls to control these points, but using a different version of the script which also creates nulls to control the tangents. So select the beard path and click Points and Tangents follow nulls. This creates a lot of nulls, one for each of the points and one for each of the in and out controls of the tangents, controlling the shape of the curves. First, let's name them all, starting with the path points. Name them beard nose, beard mouth left, beard knee left, beard tip, beard knee right, and beard mouth right. Then rename all of the in and out nulls. You can see which point these are linked to by which null they are parented to. Parent all of the path point nulls to face null, besides knee left, which is parented to hip left. We should only need to use the tip and knee left nulls, so select all of the other nulls, hide them, and set them to shy layers to hide them completely. Make sure all the nulls are at the top, limb controls below them, and shape layers at the bottom. Now we're ready to animate, which we'll do in part 2 of this lesson. See you there. Thanks for watching.